जय गोपी जना वल्लभा जय गिरिवर धारी जय गिरिवर धारी। जय यशोदानंदना जय ब्रजजन रंजना जय ब्रजजन रंजना। जय यशोदानंदना जय ब्रजजन रंजना जय ब्रजजन रंजना। यमुना तीरा बनचारे जय कुंज बिहारी जय यमुना तीरा बनचारे जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जय जय जगन्नाथ जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा जगन्नाथ बलदेव। जय जय प्रभुपाद Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Stodrakshi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charana Arvind Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Vivid Sansthapakarya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Stodrakshi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki नामाचार्य श्रील हरदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड श्री गिरि गोवर्धन की ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की गंगा माई की जमुना माई की भक्ति देवी की कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदायिनी श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की कलयुग पावन हरिनाम संकीर्तन की हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की श्रीला प्रभुपाद ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की श्री श्री गीता जयंती महामहोत्सव की निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur-unmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Desha Tarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I'm very honored to be here in the midst of all of you on the occasion of Gita Jayanti, multiple lecture series. Today we will begin with the first 4 chapters of the Gita. Sripad Ramanujacharya, while glorifying the beautiful scene of Krishna and Arjuna on the chariot, he mentions Prapanna parijataya totravetreka-panaye Jnana mudraya gitaya gitamrtaduhe namah. He says that Lord Krishna along with Arjuna is on the chariot. Lord Krishna looks like a beautifully blossomed lotus flower. And Lord Krishna is giving shelter to all of those who are surrendered unto him. Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maiya ki. Lord Krishna is having in his hand the stick, and is also having the reins of the chariot. So the stick and the reins are in one hand, and with the other hand, Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya. So Krishna is having the Jnana Mudra also. Gita Amrita Duhe Namaha. So right at the very outset, the Gita is clarifying that this is not just knowledge for armchair speculation. This is knowledge which propels one into action. And so Krishna is giving the knowledge to Arjuna, but in spite of having spoken the most sophisticated, one of the most sophisticated theistic knowledge to Arjuna, immediately after that, he is not shying away from becoming a humble servant, chariot driver, which is socially in those days was not considered to be very elevated position. In fact, when the warriors would be on the chariot, and because the battle would happen at such a ferocious tempo, the warrior would not get a chance to share verbally with the chariot driver which way to turn. So they would usually indicate to the chariot driver by kicking the chariot driver from behind. And depending on the direction of the kick, the chariot driver would understand which side to move. So this was the extent of Krishna's humility, that he was willing to take that position. And therefore, this Srimad Bhagavad Gita is a very powerful literature which has been utilized by people since ages. When Srila Prabhupada established Krishna consciousness in New York, one of the first books after the Srimad Bhagavatam which he translated, gave commentaries for, was Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In fact, he had done a previous edition in the 50s, and that transcript got lost. So Srila Prabhupada, he encouraged his devotees to distribute the Gita widely. One of the devotee groups which was distributing this Bhagavad Gita, they one day came to Prabhupada and said that when we give the Gita to people in those particular months, in the early 70s, there was another very popular book on psychoanalysis, which was called as I Am Okay, You Are Okay. So when they told Prabhupada, when we show them the Gita, people are asking for I am okay, you are okay. What should we say? Prabhupada said, show them the Gita and tell them this Gita is I am okay, you are not okay. And this Gita will reveal to you how out of the 5 topics, Ishvara, Jeev, Prakriti, Kala and Karma, when the Jiva is simply obsessed with exploiting Prakriti, through various karmas under the influence of Kala, that is known as Bhoga. And that ultimately results in Chinta. Chintam cha aparimeyam cha pralayantam upashrita. And to overcome that Chinta, the Jiva, instead of Bhoga, has to see an alternative relationship. And when he looks up, he sees Ishwar. So when the Jiva tries to establish the relationship with Ishwar, then that is yoga. And when the Jiva tries to connect with Ishwar, it is through the process of Chintan, contemplation, and all the different types of yoga processes are described. So on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna was there. Krishna spoke the Gita to him when he became bewildered. But later, after the battle was over and Krishna went back to Dwarka and Arjuna went to see Krishna, he returned back and informed Yudhishthir Maharaj that Krishna has actually ended his pastimes. And at that time he says, Vanchitoham Maharaja Harina Bandhurupina Yena me apahritam tejo Deva Vismapanam Mahat. इसको ऊपर ले लो. वो रिफ्लेक्ट करने दो. हाथ पे लो. हाँ? So, this is the first canto verse, which is very beautiful, where Arjuna is feeling that helplessness, that I am completely bereft of Krishna's association, and I am simply experiencing powerlessness. Yena me apahritam tejo, all of my power, which would stun the demigods, is suddenly disappeared. Deva Vismapanam Mahat. So at that time, the question is asked that when Arjuna was bewildered the first time, Krishna was personally there. Now, when Arjuna is bewildered, Krishna has disappeared. Who will pacify Arjuna? So the Bhagavatam says, Desha kalartha yuktani hrit tapa upashamani cha haranti prasabham chittam govinda abhihitani me. Arjuna at this moment, in a state of deep disappointment, in a state of deep feeling of hopelessness, he took shelter of those words of Krishna, which was spoken before the battle. Arjuna takes shelter of the Bhagavad Gita, the message of the Gita. That means the person who heard the Gita live also had to take shelter of that message later. Desha Kala Artha Yuktani. So this message of Gita is filled with mystic potency to reveal appropriate relevant meanings within our heart as per time, place and circumstance. Haranti prasabham chittam Govinda abhitani me. And that has the potency to attract our hearts. And therefore, the Gita begins with Dhritarashtra's inquiry. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsava mamaka pandavaschaiva kim akurvata sanjaya. So this question of Dhritarashtra reveals the root cause of the conflict. The root cause of the conflict is misidentification. Mamakaha Pandavaha. Because of that sense of ego that this is mine and that is not mine. And so, this question by Dhritarashtra begins with Dharma Kshetre. It begins with the word Dharma. And what is the last verse of Bhagavad Gita? Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir Dhruvanitir Matir Mama. So the last word is Mama. So the entire Gita begins with Dharma, ends with Mama. The Gita reveals Mama Dharma. What is my original constitutional duty as a soul. And so Prabhupada was in, Delhi, meeting few people, and one very big businessman came to him and said, Swamiji, I have one factory here, I have another factory here, I have another factory there, but there are so many problems going on in running my business, I can't sleep at night. Prabhupada said, we will allocate someone on our behalf to run that business. You hand over the business to us, you sleep peacefully. Prabhupada was testing him. He immediately got up and started walking away and saying, Swamiji, I'll see you later. Prabhupada said, take his address. He says, no, Swamiji, I'll come to you whenever I need. So Prabhupada said, people think that the more they accumulate, the more they get attached to things of this world, the more they are going to experience happiness. But that's not the situation. So then the blowing of the conch shells happen. And the blowing of the conch shells is described in great detail. And the impact of that blowing of the conch shell is that on the Kauravas side, when they hear the Pandavas blowing of the conch shell, they experience tremors in their heart. So the Pandavas are only 7 Akshahini divisions, Kauravas are 11 Akshahini divisions. But it is not the number which matters, but it is the quality of the sound vibration. Chaudike te sab loka bole hari hari, prema veshe madhye nritya kore gaur hari. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he inaugurated that Harinam Sankirtan. And when we chanted the holy names, people from all directions were attracted by his beauty and by the ecstatic bliss which he manifested by the chanting of the holy names. Somebody objected to Srila Prabhupada. He was sitting and having a conversation. Why we should chant loudly? We should chant mentally. And Prabhupada was giving example of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Kali Yuga and all, but he was insistent. Then the devotees brought prasadam. And Prabhupada said, don't give him, he will eat mentally. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically, he emphasized on the loud chanting of the holy names, because in the age of Kali, we do not have the potency alone. And therefore he says, Ekaki amar nahi pai bolo, Hare Nama Sankirtane. Mahaprabhu says, I do not have the power alone. Nahi pai bala. Lord Chaitanya says, I need help. Tumi kripa kori shraddha bindu diya, Deha Krishna nama dhvane. And therefore, one of the first names of Krishna is described here. Tataha shvetair hoyair yuktair mahati syandane sthitau madhava pandavaschaiva divyam shankhau pradadmatu. So the first name of Krishna being used is Madhava. So what is the meaning of Madhava? So Madhava is described as Yadu Putrasya Madhu Apatyam Madhava iti. He who appears in the dynasty of Madhu, a son of Yadu, is called Madhava. And another description of Madhava is Ma Lakshmi Tasya Dharmapatir Yatcha Madhava. One who is the husband of the goddess of fortune. one who is the husband of the goddess of fortune Lakshmi, and the goddess of learning Saraswati is known as Madhava. So, Madhava here indicates fortune. And so his presence with Krishna, with Arjuna, indicates that Arjuna, in spite of whatever may be the size of his army, is going to be prosperous. Because Lakshmi is a consort of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and exists for his pleasure. So Lakshmi will always follow the will of the Lord. Kunti Maharani says, Atha Vishvesha Vishwatman Vishvamurte Svakeshu me Sneha Pasha Imam Chindi Dridham Pandhushu Vishnushu. She is praying, my dear Lord, please cut my attachments to my family so that I can remain fully attached and absorbed in a relationship with you. And so Lakshmi came out of the churning of the milk ocean. But the first product which came out of the churning of the milk ocean was halahal vish, poison. So the poison manifested first. Lakshmi was born later. So halahal vish is considered to be elder brother of Lakshmi. Naturally, he appeared first, Lakshmi appeared later. So, being an elder brother, he is always very conscious of protecting his sister. And because Lakshmi is married to Narayan and is the consort of Narayan, if someone tries to have an independent relationship with Lakshmi, if someone tries to approach Lakshmi in a mood of enjoyment, so she immediately escalates the matter to her brother. And the elder brother, Vish, enters into such a person's life. And that person's life will become poisonous. And therefore Bhagavatam says, Arthasya sadhane siddhe utkarshe rakshane vyaye nashopabhoga ayasha trasa chinta matirnrinam. When it comes to Lakshmi, at all stages, one can expect some kind of misery. Sadhane, when the sadhana for earning Lakshmi is going on, you may think when Siddhi comes, there will be ecstasy or bliss. Utkarshe, while trying to grow, Rakshane, to protect, Vyaye, while spending also. While spending, there are so many choices that even when you are spending, you're not very sure whether this is the best way. So a very big businessman came to me and he was talking to me in private. And he was telling me that he has so much of money, that it is like water in an ocean. He was very honest about it. I have so much money, it is like water in an ocean, but just like ocean water is salty and it cannot quench the thirst, all of this money which I have earned is not satisfying me. My heart is still full of thirst. But I see that you are chanting Hare Krishna. Because of chanting the holy names and because of practicing bhakti, you seem to have the water in a well, sweet and deep. Please, Prabhu, give me few drops of your well water. I said, please take few drops of my well water and you please give few drops of your ocean water. The result of that was next 6 months he was missing. He had a phobia of coming to the temple. He thought, we'll take away some of his drops seriously. So therefore, Madhava means Krishna is always favorably inclined towards his devotees. Prosperity comes by the pleasure of Krishna, not by our own calculations. And therefore Duryodhana did all his calculations, and all Arjuna did was take shelter of Krishna. And then another word used is Pandava. So, Pandoh tat akhyaya prasiddhasya Rajyapatyam, he who is the son of the famous king Pandu. So, Arjuna is the son of Pandu, and Arjuna had the great fortune of being in a noble family. So, these are some of the opportunities all of us get. What are some of the opportunities? When it comes to Nalakuvar and Manigriv, it is described in Bhagavatam. Rudrasya anucharau bhutva sudriptau dhanadatmajau kailasya upavane vanyau mandatkinyo madotkatau. Number one, they were associates of Rudra. Second, they were the sons, they were related as sons of Dhanada or Kuvera. Third, they had the residence in Kailash. And fourth, they had the fortune of bathing in Mandakini. But in spite of all of these good opportunities, they wasted the noble, powerful, favorable, devotional opportunities. And what were they doing? Varunim madiram pitva mada ghurnitalochano. They were simply engaged in drinking Varuni liquor. Stri janair anugayadbhir chehratu pushpite vane. And they were engaged in womanizing and enjoying themselves. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada very strongly mentions that if in the human form of life the devotees get opportunity to be with other devotees, to be in the parampara which is bona fide, if we get the opportunity to come regularly and visit satsang in the temples, and then we actually are getting the opportunity to practice Krishna consciousness in our own lives, that is the greatest fortune. Durlabho manavo deho dehinam kshanabhangura tatrapi durlabham manye vaikuntha priyadarshanam. Human form of life is rare, rarer still is association. Rarest is to get the association of pure devotees and an opportunity to practice the process. So Srila Prabhupada, he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in 1922 at Ultadanga Junction. And when His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada, saw at that time Abhay Charan Day, he gave him instruction, preach in the English language in the Western countries. And Srila Prabhupada kept that instruction within his heart. He met Saraswati Thakur only a few times. But the example shown by Srila Prabhupada is whatever opportunities he received, he took advantage of those opportunities. Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maiya ki. So, later, after Srila Saraswati Thakur departed, Srila Prabhupada was in Sitakant Banerjee Lane, and he was staying in the ground floor, and on the first floor of his apartment he had given it out to the Gaudiya Math devotees. So nowadays around colleges we have voice or base center. So Srila Prabhupada's house was one of the first base. So the Gaudiya Math Brahmacharis were being taught Harinamamrita Vyakaran by one Saraswati Thakur disciple whose name was Dol Govind Shastri. One day, after giving a lecture, Dol Govind Shastri came out and Srila Prabhupada was sitting on the staircase between ground floor and first floor. Dol Govind Shastri came and sat there next to Srila Prabhupada and said that, Abhay Babu, I just gave a lecture on Prithvite Ache Joto Nagaradi Gram. Sarvatra Prachara Hoibe Moranam. In every town and village, the holy name will spread. But I don't know how it will happen. So Srila Prabhupada was sitting and chanting japa. He got up. He took 2 steps down, turned around, and pointing towards Srila Dolo Govinda Shastri, he said, if Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made that prediction, it will happen. Then he took 2 steps down further, turned around, and again facing Dolo Govinda Shastri, he said, one day, a fool who surrendered at the lotus feet of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur will make it happen. And then Srila Prabhupada took 2 steps down further. In that period, Dol Govinda Shastri started thinking, because he was also Saraswati Thakur disciple. He started thinking, will that be me? Prabhupada took 2 steps down, turned around, and pointing to Dol Govinda Shastri, he said, it will not be you. And Dol Govinda Shastri started thinking, what does Abhay Babu think? Is he going to do it? How can he possibly do it? Day and night he is only thinking about money, money and money. He can never do it. So nobody could have imagined at that time that the difference between one person and another person is not access to opportunities, but how one utilizes those opportunities. And here, Arjuna, being a Pandava, utilized those spiritual opportunities fully. Then another word utilized here, mentioning about Krishna, is Panchajanya Rishikesha Devadatta Dhananjaya. Rishikesh refers to controller of the senses. He under whose control the senses are acting is known as Rishikesha. When Thakur Haridas was being attracted by Maya Devi, because Thakur Haridas was completely surrendered to the holy name, even Maya Devi had to surrender to him. Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Maya dasi prema mage ithe ki vismay, sadhu kripa nam bina prema na janmay. Maya Dasi, Maya Devi became Dasi and started begging for prema from Haridas Thakur. And he says, what is so astonishing? Because sadhu kripa, without the grace of sadhus and without the chanting of the holy names, prema cannot arise. And so, this is absolutely crucial, controlling of one's senses. When the devotees were staying in Vrindavan, from Fogala Ashram, they were on the way to Krishna Balram construction site. There was some sweet maker who stopped them and said, early in the morning, the first sweets, if devotees take, it will be auspicious for me. So the devotees didn't need much convincing for this. They stood right there and started eating the rasgulla, rasmalai, sandesh, whatever he was giving away. At that time, suddenly Srila Prabhupada's car came from Fogala ashram and passed by them. The devotees tried to hide. But this was a street side stall. You could not hide. So they turned around and the car went straight. So they were relieved. Then the car stopped. And then Prabhupada's car made reverse and stopped right where the devotees were standing. And both their hands were filled with thrones of different sweets. Some of their sweets were in their mouth. And it was too sudden for them to swallow. Prabhupada turned his window down. With his eyes wide open, he glanced at each and every one of them. And glanced on what was in their hand. And then Prabhupada said, Bengali sweets, essential for life. And the devotees were in bliss. They thought, wow, Prabhupada has given his blessings. 3 years later, Prabhupada was in US in a college program and he came out of the program. And there was one devotee who was in that, episode. So he had set up a stall and there were some books. And right next to the book, he was also giving away Sandesh as Mahaprasad. So when Prabhupada came out and he came to the stall, this devotee immediately picked up Sandesh and gave to Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada, Bengali sweets. Prabhupada picked up a Chaitanya Charitamrita and said, this is the real Bengali sweet. So Srila Prabhupada, he took break from the translation of the Srimad Bhagavatam and made sure that he gave the entire commentaries to all the volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita before resuming the Srimad Bhagavatam, because he wanted the devotees in ISKCON to have direct access to our Sampradaya teachings in specific, which is coming from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Panchajanyam Rishikesha Devadatta Dhananjaya. So another word, another name used here for Arjuna is Dhananjaya. Dhananjaya means one who collected wealth by conquering the enemies. So Krishna is inspiring Arjuna, just like you collected the wealth, you should now collect the wealth of meditation and have the thoughts of the Supreme Lord within your mind. Jadi sai Mahaprabhur na pai kripadhan kibaraj kibadeha sab akaran. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tests Prataprudra Maharaj, who is such a great king, he expresses that I am not interested in this wealth, I am not interested in the kingdom, I am simply interested in getting the wealth of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. Srila Prabhupada was on Juhu land talking to a group of devotees, and then a very big businessman whose name was Mr. Brijratan Mohta entered. He was a relative of the Birlas. As soon as he entered, Srila Prabhupada introduced him. Oh, we have Mr. Mohta, very big businessman. Mr. Mohta immediately said, Srila Prabhupada, you went to America with 40 rupees. Now you have properties all over the world worth 40 crore rupees. Srila Prabhupada, you are the real businessman. Prabhupada immediately said, why don't you join my business? He said, I will support from outside now. But Srila Prabhupada established Krishna consciousness all over the world on the basis of his Shraddha and faith, in the words of Srila Saraswati Thakur. And that is real wealth. So sometimes devotees feel we cannot spread Krishna consciousness till we get assets. The only asset required is faith in the words of Krishna and faith in the words of the Guru Parampara. That's the real wealth. Then Dhananjay also means where Arjuna says, I am known as Dhananjay because I conquered all the lands. I stand in the midst of all the prosperity. And therefore, Arjuna represents that prosperity. When Sudamaji came to Dwarka, he was completely poor. And all the residents of Dwarka look at Sudamaji and says, Kim manena kritam punyam avadhutena bhikshuna shriyahinena lokesmin garhitena adhamena cha. What kind of punya has this person performed because of which Krishna is treating him with so much love, with so much respect? Shriya hinena lokesmin garhitena adhamena cha. So Krishna actually respected and served Sudamaji with so much affection and love that Sudamaji's heart was filled with bliss and satisfaction. And on the way back, Krishna had not given him any wealth. And on the way back to his home, he was meditating on how Krishna reciprocated. Shvo bhute vishva bhavena svasukhena bhivandita jagam svalayam tata patham anuvrajyanandita. So the Acharyas explain what made Sudama so blissful and so satisfied. The key to satisfaction is respect and love. When one experiences love and respect in a relationship which is genuine, then one becomes completely satisfied. And Srila Prabhupada expanded the Krishna consciousness movement with only 40 rupees in his pocket to today a global organization with more than 750 centers. And the seed for that was Srila Prabhupada respected each and every devotee who came. Prabhupada was humble. He was enthusiastic. Srila Prabhupada appreciated all the devotees' contribution. Srila Prabhupada acknowledged excellence. And Srila Prabhupada gave creative freedom. These were the 5 principles he followed in his leadership, which helped ISKCON grow. So Shyam Sundar Prabhu, he says, initially when I came, after a couple of years, I had to go to jail because of some crime I had done in the past. He was thinking Prabhupada will reject me. So he came to Prabhupada saying, Srila Prabhupada, I have to go to jail. Prabhupada said, Krishna was born in jail. Then Prabhupada asked him, why you are going to jail? He said, Prabhupada, before coming to you, in my past I was dealing with drugs. Prabhupada said, oh, I was also running Prayag pharmacy. So he felt, okay, Prabhupada is not rejecting me. Then Prabhupada said, how many years you will go to jail? This was 1969. He said, 5 years. That means he would have been inside jail till 1974. Prabhupada said, you go and chant Hare Krishna in the jail. You will be released. Within 3 months, he received release orders. He couldn't believe it. Then he went and preached to the Beatles. Then he came to India. He was the one who organized the Cross Maidan. He was driving a car from a life member, organizing the event. And this was the first time he was driving in India through Kalbadevi market in Mumbai. And in India, for driving, you need something beyond license. You need a lot of mystic potentials. He was not used to all kinds of randomness happening, and suddenly someone jumped in front of him as he was driving without giving a warning, and he hit that person. That person fell on the ground. A crowd surrounded the car, started looking inside. Shyam Sundar Prabhu took the bead bag in his hand and he thought, they are going to bury me. Suddenly this crowd jumped on the guy who was hit and fell on the ground. The crowd started beating him up. So Shyam Sundar Prabhu got even more bewildered. He said, I was the one who made the mistake. Why are they beating him up? Then he thought, maybe in India they begin from there. Then they'll come to me. And then suddenly the crowd moved aside and said, you go. He said, but he was innocent. I made the mistake. Why did you beat him up? And one of the gentlemen, he looked at Shyam Sundar Prabhu and said, you are dressed as a Vaishnava. How dare he disturb a Vaishnava? So Shyam Sundar Prabhu was bewildered. He said, my God, what a major responsibility this is. That even for being dressed like this, the culture here has so much of respect and honor. And so, Srila Prabhupada engaged these devotees to establish Krishna consciousness in India. And when they were making a house for Srila Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, can we embed the walls of this house with jewels and rubies? Prabhupada said, my devotees are the real jewels. So therefore, Arjuna is known as Dhananjay and Krishna is known as Rishikesha, one who has control over the senses. Then another beautiful description comes. Atha vyavasthitan drishtva dhartarashtran kapidhvaja pravritte shastra sampate dhanur udyamya pandava. Kapidhvaja. Kapidhvaja refers to whom? Hanumanji. Hanumanji, who is on the flag of Arjuna. And so, when Hanumanji had destroyed Lanka, burned the whole of Lanka, finally he comes and takes blessings of Sita Devi. When he offers obeisances to Sita Devi glorifies Hanumanji and says, nobody could have performed this seva of jumping across the ocean and coming here. You are the only one who could have done it, Hanumanji. Even my husband, Ram, I don't think he could have done. Even Lakshman could not have done. Even Gauranga, I am not sure. So if someone glorifies like this, if we are in the conditioned stage, it affects us. And we actually start believing it. We feel good about it. For social reasons, externally we may say, no. But internally the mind says, at last someone has understood my glories. I am only wondering why nobody is recording it. But Hanumanji, how did he respond? Mat vishishtascha tulyascha santi tatra vanaukasa mattah pratyavara kaschit nasti sugriva sannidhau. He says, actually Sita Devi, in this entire army of Sugriva, there is not a single soldier who is inferior to me. They are all equal to me or superior to me. And then someone may think, okay, that is a little too much. Maybe he is speaking artificially. What is Hanumanji actually meaning? And then he says immediately, Aham tavadiha prapte kim punarte mahabala nahi prakrishta preshyante hi tare janaha. He says, actually, in a typical situation, who is sent as a messenger? The most powerful people are never sent as a messenger. Errand's boy. So I was just sent as a messenger because I am not one of the prominent people in that. So if a messenger could create so much of havoc, can you imagine when the real generals come, what will happen? So the interesting thing is, Hanumanji was the hero of the battle of Lanka. Everyone acknowledges that. Suddenly, from being the hero of the battle of Lanka, now when the Lord appears as Krishna, he decides to make Arjuna the hero. And tells Hanumanji, you sit on the flag. Just imagine ourselves in that situation. If from being the most prominent frontline person, you are suddenly told, you just sit. And what is your role? Glorify whoever is performing well. So many people will go through identity crisis. So Hanumanji was suddenly put on the flag. And then right in front of his eyes, he sees Arjuna getting bewildered. So Hanumanji did not get down at that time and tell Krishna, I told you, don't try new people. It will not work. Ours is a tried and tested formula. Don't make changes. So one of the greatest causes of fear which conditioned soul experience is change. Nothing causes more anxiety and trauma and fear within a person's heart than the prospect of change. And so, Hanumanji was not attached to a specific service activity. He was attached to being a servant. So the attitude of a servant is more important than a specific detail of an activity. So from Hanumanji's perspective, if he is told to sit on the flag and support, for him, that was perfect. So therefore the word Kapidhwaja is very important, because you will see Hanumanji's photo and murtis in different gyms in India. Right? But to become muscularly powerful is easier than to become powerful in one's humility. So Hanumanji's real power is his humility. And then another word used here is Achyuta. Senayor ubhayor madhye ratham sthapayame Achyuta. So Achyuta refers to one who is never lost to his devotees and never fails his devotees. One who by his nature never ever fails a devotee from the word given is Achyuta. Right? And so, when Krishna is performing the Damodar Leela, Shukadeva Goswami explains why he orchestrates this Damodar Leela. Swamatu svinnagatraya visrishta kabarasraja drishtva parishramam Krishna kripayasit swabandhane. Yashodama is trying to bind Krishna again and again, but 2 fingers short. perspiration, flowers falling apart. Drishtva, seeing, parishramam. Shramam means effort. Pari means repeated. Parisar, parikrama, 360 degree. So Krishna wants to demonstrate that I become controlled by my devotees' love. Evam sandarshita hyanga harina bhrityavashyata svavashenapi krishnena yasyedam seshwaram vashe. To demonstrate this, that I am controlled by my devotees' love, I cannot be controlled even by the 330 million demigods. Krishna performs this pastime. And Krishna wants to glorify the power of Yashoda Mai's Vatsalya Bhav. So when Krishna is tied up by the ropes to the mortar, Balramji comes there. Balramji looks at Krishna and says, "Hey, who dared to tie you like this?" Krishna said, "You don't know? Yashoda Mai did that. And what is the use of you being elder brother? If in your presence such injustice is happening, go and do something." So Balramji enters into the house and shouts, "Who tied up Krishna? Who tied up Krishna?" Yashoda Mai comes out. She says, "I tied up. What you will do?" Balramji says, "You don't know who's Krishna? He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the origin of Ram, Narsingha, Vamana." Yashoda Mai looked at Balramji and said, "So then who are you then?" Balramji says, "Oh, me. I am the first expansion of Krishna. From me, Sankarshan, Vasudeva, Aniruddha, all the other incarnations came." Yashoda Mai picked up her stick, looked at Balramji and said, "All the incarnations had to be born in my house only or what? If you speak too much, I'll tie you also." So Balramji could not release Krishna. So Krishna comes under the infallible control of his devotees' love. And in this way, this particular episode demonstrates how Krishna is Achyuta. Then another word describing Arjuna is Partha. So now Krishna brings the chariot of Arjuna in the midst of the battle. So far Arjuna is very eager to fight because Arjuna is seeing Duryodhan, Dushasan. Certain situations you like. So Arjuna is a fighter and then he wants to fight. His nature, his swabhav is to fight. His current, swadharma occupation is also to fight. And when he sees Duryodhan and Dushasan, his desire to fight also grows. Now Krishna suddenly changes situations and brings Arjuna in front of Bhishma and Drona. Arjuna looks at Bhishma, "Hey, this is my grandfather. Drona, oh, he's my teacher. How can I fight?" So, Uvacha Partha Pashyaitan Samavetan Kurun iti. So Partha means Prithaya Apatyam Puman iti, the son of Pritha, Partha. So what is so special about Kunti? Kunti has also gone through lots of difficulties and ups and downs. Bishan Mahagne Purushata Darshanat Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichrata. So she has seen so many difficult situations, but she continues to serve and not give up her duty. So what the eye sees is often far lesser than what the I or the ego needs to see. So intelligence is to know when the perception should reshape the intention and when the intention should shape the perception. And so Arjuna explains his reasons why he will not fight. And Arjuna explains that I am feeling compassion because he sees his relatives. He feels he will be influenced by sinful reactions, and the family traditions will be destroyed. So all of those reasons he starts giving. So Arjuna's far-sighted fear was he had no fear of his own death, but he was afraid of doing the wrong action that will hurt him in the next world, and it will hurt others in this life. So even when we see far ahead, many of us may not go beyond this life because our human vision is finite, fallible, and fickle. So there is a limit to which, with our limited intelligence, we can perceive things. And hence it is described here that Arjuna was feeling great fear that he is going to destroy all of these family traditions. And whatever arguments he put forward appeared to be perfectly valid. It seemed to make logical sense because he was speaking at the level of Swabhava and Swadharma. And therefore Krishna realized that Arjuna is experiencing an identity crisis between three identities. His identity as a warrior inspired him to fight. His identity as a grandson inspired him to show affection for grandfather. And his identity as a student inspired him to respect his teacher. And so Krishna had to introduce the most important identity as a soul. Like that. When Giriraj Maharaj joined ISKCON and he was in Mumbai, his family also came, and his father told Prabhupada, you take a blank check, release my son. So Giriraj Maharaj told Prabhupada, you keep the check and you keep me also. Prabhupada said, no, we don't want all that. This is by your own free will, you go. If they have come to take you, you go with them. So he went with them. And when he was at home, the parents brought a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist took Giriraj Maharaj inside a room and started asking questions. What is your problem in life? And he said, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanudarshana. Then whatever question psychiatrist was asking, he was giving answer from Bhagavad Gita. In half an hour, the psychiatrist came out, told the parents that if I stay half an hour more with your son, I will become Hare Krishna. And then said, your son is permanently infected. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned that there are various convictions we have based on material conceptions. But when we hear the Gita, we are trying to establish spiritual convictions. So then, one of the shlokas which Arjuna mentions is Drishtvenam swajanam Krishna yutsam samapasthitam Sidanti mamagatrani mukham cha parishushati. He uses the word Krishna. So, Krishna refers to one who is going to release us from material existence. That is Krishna. Then another meaning of Krishna is who removes the fault of his devotees. Doshan karshati nivarayati iti Krishna. Another meaning is Purusharthan akarshayati prapayati iti Krishna. He who provides the devotees all their needs. like that. So he provides all their needs. That is Krishna. And then another meaning is he whose bodily hue is like a tamal tree and nursed by Mother Yashoda. Another meaning is one who captures or attracts everyone's heart. Sarva chitta akarshanatva. And another meaning is that Krishna declares to Arjuna, of all my names, the name of Krishna is the topmost. And therefore, Krishna, he provides everything which is required for his devotees' benefit. All attractive, reservoir of all pleasure. And in this way, those who are worshipping and serving Krishna are most fortunate because they are serving the all-attractive personality. Vaishnavera gunagrahi no dekhaye dosh, koi mane vakya kore Vaishnava santosh. We may see differences in devotees, but we should see one good quality, one common quality which all of us have. All of us are trapped by Maya. That is one thing in common. Is there any doubt? All of us are trapped by Maya. That is one thing in common. And so, to release us from that Maya, we need devotees' support. So when Yudhishthir was fighting against Karna, Karna defeated him thoroughly and Yudhishthir's chariot came back into the camp. Arjuna started searching for Yudhishthir. When Arjuna couldn't find Yudhishthir, he became panicky. He came to the camp and when he saw Yudhishthir Maharaj safe and sound, he was satisfied. Yudhishthir looked at Arjuna and said, Arjuna, I hope you have killed Karna and come. You have defeated Karna and come. Arjuna said, no, I didn't even fight against him. I was so afraid when I didn't see you, I came running, searching for you. Yudhishthir looks at Arjuna and says, I thought you are a powerful, brave warrior. I am ashamed of you, Arjuna. You are such a coward. And your Gandiva is useless. As soon as Arjuna heard this, he put the arrow on the Gandiva, pointed it towards Yudhishthir's head, looked at Krishna and said, my dear Krishna, I have taken a vow. Anyone insults Gandiva, I will kill him. Give your blessings so that I can kill Yudhishthir. Krishna said, I spoke Gita so that you can kill Duryodhan, not Yudhishthir. Arjuna said, but I have taken a vow. Krishna said, there are two ways of killing someone as per Shastra. One is with weapons. Second is you insult him with horrible words. Criticism is equivalent to killing. Arjuna put the Gandiva down, looked at Yudhishthir and started chastising him, calling him ill names. He spoke for some time and then suddenly jumped at the lotus feet of Yudhishthir, held it and started crying. My dear brother, I committed such a grave offense. You are my worshipable elder brother. Arjuna suddenly got up full of emotion, took a sword in his hand, put the sword against his neck, looked at Krishna and said, I have committed offense against Yudhishthir. I want to kill myself. And Krishna was thinking, my God, he's going from frying pan to fire. Krishna looked at Arjuna and said, Arjuna, don't you know in Shastra there are two ways of killing oneself? Arjuna is thinking, how many such ways are there? And Krishna says, one way of killing oneself is with weapons. Second way of killing oneself is self-glorification. One who glorifies himself. That is equivalent to suicide. Arjuna kept the sword down, started thinking of all the episodes where he was mainly responsible for success. And then finally Krishna said, okay, enough. There was no way the Pandavas could have been victorious without Krishna's repeated intervention. So therefore, Krishna is one who removes the faults of his devotees. That is one of the meanings of Krishna. Then another word used here is Keshava. Keshava refers to one who has a beautiful hair and one who killed the Keshi demon and one who controls Brahma and Shiva. So that is Keshava. And so when Arjuna is on the battlefield of Kurukshetra and Krishna is his chariot driver, it is described. On the opposite side, the warriors who looked at Arjuna's chariot driver, they were enchanted. And although Arjuna's arrows were sharp and killing them, but while being killed, while dying, these soldiers, they departed with great appreciation for the beauty of Arjuna's chariot driver. Tathaiva chanye naraloka vira ya ahave Krishna mukharavindam netrai pavanto nayanabhiramam parthastra puta padamapurasya. They were purified by Arjuna's arrows and they were ultimately delivered. And so Krishna is Keshava, one with beautiful transcendental hair. So Srila Prabhupada was approached by one disciple in the early days and he said, Srila Prabhupada, you are telling us to shave our head, but we see that Krishna has long hair, Balram has long hair, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityanand Prabhu, in all the photos we see, they have long hair. Jesus Christ has long hair, Buddha has long hair. Why you want us to shave? Prabhupada said, who told you about Krishna? The devotee said, you. Who told you about Lord Chaitanya? You. Prabhupada said, what is my hairstyle? And Prabhupada was giving a lecture. He said, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to save you. But Prabhupada had a Bengali accent. So it appeared, he is saying, Lord Chaitanya has come to shave you. So the devotee said, Prabhupada, shave you or save you? Prabhupada said, shave you and save you. So Krishna personally appears as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to play the role of a devotee and spread the chanting of his own holy names. So Arjuna is experiencing this great anxiety, and that tension is not a moral crisis, because moral crisis is moral versus immoral. But Arjuna is experiencing an ethical crisis, which is one moral choice versus another moral choice. And sometimes that is more difficult, right? And so there are these two dharmas, Kula dharma to protect one's family members, and Kshatriya dharma is to punish the aggressors. But what to do when aggressors are family members? So that was the dilemma he was in. And then another word used for describing Krishna is Govinda. Kimno Rajyena Govinda. So one who delivers the earth, Garbhodakshay, from the Garbhodakshay ocean as Varahadev. And he who protects the cows by lifting the Govardhana hill is Govinda. Like that. So Krishna is referred to as Govinda, one who is protecting Mother Earth, protecting the cows and the senses. And then another word used to describe Krishna is Madhusudana. Etan nahantumichhami gnatopi Madhusudana. Mahavipattau samsare yah smaret Madhusudana. Vipattau tasya sampatti bhavit ityaha Shankara. In one's vipatti, if one remembers Lord Madhusudan, that vipatti becomes his sampatti. That is described. And therefore, this material world is a place of misery. It will remain dukkhale ashashvat. One devotee was massaging Srila Prabhupada in Mexico, and he saw that mosquitoes are biting him, but not biting Prabhupada. So he told Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, looks like mosquitoes are not biting you because you are a pure devotee. Prabhupada said, maybe here it is like that, but in Calcutta the mosquitoes make no distinction. And when Prabhupada was in Calcutta, he was sitting to give a class and mosquitoes were around his head. And Prabhupada got down from the Vyasasana and told the devotee, just see, the mosquitoes have dethroned me. So the material world is always going to be a place of miseries. And typically before coming to Krishna consciousness, we would visit the temple so that we would actually be praying how to increase our sampatti and decrease our vipatti. When anyone comes to the temple, what do they pray to all the demigods and the devatas and the lordships? Increase my sampatti, decrease my vipatti. So here what is being described is that whether there is sampatti or vipatti, continue praying to serve the Lord in all situations. And then another word used is Janardana, he who destroys those who obstruct the well-being of the society. And in this way, the first chapter is filled with these reasons given by Arjuna not to fight. Arjuna's swadharma as a kshatriya, Arjuna's swabhava as a kshatriya is not sufficient to save Arjuna from this identity crisis. And so at the very end, eva muktva Arjuna sankhe rathopastha upavishat visrijya sasharam chapam shoka sambigna manasa. With his heart overwhelmed with grief, Arjuna places the chariot down and accepts defeat. So the Gita is revealing in the first chapter that the internal enemies need to be conquered first. Okay, what is that symbolism? The inner turmoil made Arjuna do what no other enemy could have made him do. Duryodhan, Dushasan, or even Bhishma could never threaten Arjuna and make him put down his bow. So, actually, the Gita's setting is very, very beautiful because it is putting Arjuna in a situation where he now has to seek shelter. That means the most powerful warrior needs support and help from others. Klaibyam masmagama partha naitatvai upapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvatishta parantapa. Krishna is telling Arjuna, and the word used here is parantapa, one who chastises the enemies, he who subdues his enemies. Hare parantapa, you are supposed to be the chastiser of enemies. You are so powerful. What has happened? You have succumbed to your internal enemies. And then he says, Katham Bhishma Maham Sankhye Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubi Pratiyutsami Pujaraha Arisudana. Oh my dear Lord, you are Arisudana, one who kills enemies. And therefore, Arjuna has succumbed to his internal enemies. And why the inner war matters? Because the Gita demonstrates very beautifully how we all need to win the inner war. Second, only when we win the inner war, we can even begin fighting the outer war. And third, only when we start fighting the outer war, then we will win that war. And therefore, we have to conquer those inner insecurities and anarthas. When Kaviraj Goswami at the age of 90 is writing the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says, Ami Briddha Jaratur Likhite ka Paekor Mana Kichu Smarane na hoy Na dekhiye noyane na shuniye shravane Tabu likhiye bado vismay. Ami Briddha Jaratur, I am extremely old. As I am writing, my hands are trembling. I am not able to remember. My eyes are not able to see. But still I continue to write. This itself is astonishing. Bada Vismay. This is very, very astonishing. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is simply becoming an instrument in the hands of the predecessor acharyas, becomes a puppet in the hands of the Vaishnavas who are assembled in Vrindavan. And that makes him an instrument. And that's extremely crucial. When my father met Radhanath Maharaj for the first time, many years after I joined, Radhanath Swami asked him, so what you were doing? So he said, Maharaj, I served the steel plant for 35 years. Maharaj said, now you serve Tulsi plant. So Krishna has given the most powerful position in Vrindavan to a plant. Vrinda Devi manifests as Tulsi. Because Vrindavan is all based on how we agree to become servant of the servant. And so here, Arjuna, with all of his powerful skills, realizes that I have to surrender to Krishna. And at this point, Eva Muktva Rishi Kesha Guda Kesha Parantapa Nayotsya iti Govinda Uktva Tushnim Babhuvaha. Arjuna says, I will not fight, and he places his bow and his arrow. So the key to humility is what we don't know may be more important than what we do know. And when we face undetected obstacles, that's the time to reverse our mental map. And so Krishna at this point begins speaking the Bhagavad Gita. And he begins by first chastising Arjuna that you are lamenting for that which is not worthy of lamentation, and then brings in the concept of another dimension. Your nature, your occupation was not sufficient. Now you need another identity, your Swarupa as an Atman, as a soul. And so Krishna reveals to Arjuna that the bodies will change. At the end of life, that soul will enter into another body. The soul is not subject to change. So far, you're only obsessed with things connected to your body and your mind. But this is at the level of the soul. And so, tolerate all those difficulties. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha agama apaino anityastantitiksha bharata. The summer and winter seasons will come and go. Tolerate it. Perform your duty. Because when you begin Krishna consciousness, you may be in ecstasy. And Prabhupada said to come to Krishna consciousness is difficult, to stay in Krishna consciousness is more difficult, and to stay happy in Krishna consciousness is most difficult. And therefore, when you keep repeating the same thing again and again, one may wonder how long this is going to go. I was distributing books, showed it to one person, the Bhagavad Gita. He said, I already have one Gita. My father, my grandfather, they have one Gita. Then I went ahead to the next bogi. I gave him some prasadam, and then this guy followed me and said, I want Gita from you. I said, Arey bhai, you already have 2 Gitas at home. What do you want from me? He said, last 6 months my father is chastising me, my boss is chastising me, my wife is chastising me, everybody is chastising me. You are the first person in the last 6 months who has smiled at me. So I want the Gita from your hand. I said, if I had known this, I would have laughed and given whole Bhagavatam. Kali Yuga is a yuga where people are in a deep state of constant frustration. One of our devotees is very jovial by nature, always smiling. His boss called him to his cabin and said, any problem? He said, sir, why? You're always smiling. So that has become abnormal in Kali Yuga. And therefore, tan titikshasva, tolerance, one of the very, very important requirements for long-term sustenance of any activity. Agama apaino anityas tan titikshasva Bharata. Bharata means one who is coming from the dynasty of the Bharata. So which family we belong to is also an important consideration. You are expected to have certain standard because you are from that family. Right? So when Arjuna, his son Abhimanyu died, his son Parikshit, when he was cursed to die in 7 days and 7 nights, Shukadeva Goswami came, and when Shukadeva Goswami is sitting right in front of Parikshit, Parikshit says, Api me Bhagavan Prita Krishna Pandu Sutta Priya Paitra Satsevya Prityartham Jadgotrasyata Bandhava. My dear Shukadeva Goswami, how is it that at this moment when I need your support the most, you have manifested without anyone informing you? Who has informed you? Krishna. From within the heart has inspired you. And why Krishna has inspired you to come here? Not because I am a great devotee, but because I belong to the family of great devotees. Paitra Satsevya Prityartham. Because Krishna loves the Pandavas so much, Krishna has been constantly tracking what is going on with the Pandavas' descendants, and therefore he has sent you. So Prabhupada writes in that purport, if you want to serve your family, one of the best ways of serving your family is by becoming devotee of Krishna, because then Krishna tracks the future of your family and supports in every possible way, even beyond your life. When I became Hare Krishna, many of my family members were not happy. So I organized a satsang program and took one more devotee with me. He gave a lecture to them and said, pointing to me, he has become a devotee in your family. Because of him, all of you will go to Vaikuntha, to the spiritual world. They were all very blissful. After the lecture, one cousin came to me and said, continue chanting. And if you have any problem, let me know. I didn't know that your chanting and your bhakti and everything is going to help me also. So, we are now in the family of Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Parampara. And if you go through the list of the predecessor acharyas, we are supposed to be in that line. So that reposes such a powerful responsibility on all of us. Right? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur defined Patita. One who cannot chant 64 rounds is Patita. So that makes us all. So therefore, Prabhupada mercifully gave some concession. It said chant 16 rounds. Right? Somebody was arguing with me. All of you are too much obsessed with this 16:16 in ISKCON. Where in Gita Krishna is telling to Arjuna? Which shloka? On battlefield, did Arjuna was ever asked by Krishna, Arjuna, finish 16? Did he ever ask? Is there any description in Mahabharata? Or did Arjuna ever tell Krishna, my dear Lord, take the chariot behind that tree, 4 rounds remaining? So from where you got that 16? So I told him, Gita Krishna says, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. Chant 24 hours. Can you do that? Therefore, Prabhupada mercifully said, chant 16 rounds. That guy looked at me and said, Jai Prabhupada. So we are coming in a parampara. And therefore, we need to appreciate that. Then, in future verses, he uses the word Purusharshabha, Yam Hinabyata Yantete, Purusham Purusharshabha, best amongst human beings. Then he uses the word Mahabahu. So all those descriptions about the soul are mentioned. And then after having described about the soul, he describes the Sakama Karma Yoga, where performing prescribed duties gives enjoyment. And he says, you perform your duty as a Kshatriya, you will attain the enjoyment you want. And then he comes to the stage of Nishkam Karma Yoga, Buddhi Yoga, detached work, which will be without reaction. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana Bahushakayanantascha Buddhayoho Avyavasainam. Vyavasaya means business. Buddhi means intelligence. Vyavasaya Buddhi means business-like intelligence. But between the two, he adds one word, Atmika. So, you practice business-like intelligence while practicing spirituality. That means be organized in your spiritual practice. So somebody was arguing with me, but why you just chanting and loudly you have to show to everybody, carry bead in your hand and show everybody you have this, that. Bhakti has to be done inside, अंदर, बहुत अंदर. इतना अंदर मुझे भी पता नहीं. So, why we have a specific way of doing it? Because spontaneously the desire will never come. Therefore, we need a certain process and mechanism. So, Vyavasaya Atmika. So, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to South India, Lord Nityananda insists, Tomar dui hosta bodha nama ganane Jalapatra bahirvas vahibe kemone. That your two hands, one is always chanting, the other one is always counting. My dear Lord, therefore you take a servant with you who will actually support you. So therefore, Prabhupada says, in this shloka, it is clear that the holy name must be chanted as per specific number. So that is Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi. Then he refers to Arjuna again as Dhananjaya. Durena hyavaram karma buddhi yogat Dhananjaya. That, my dear Arjuna, by following detached work, stay away from the reactions of all of this work. And then Arjuna asks Krishna, okay, what is the symptom of someone who's completely steady? Sthitapragya. Sthitapragyasya ka bhasha. So Krishna says, Prajahati Yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. One who is free from all superfluous identities and fixed in his identity as a soul. Atmanyeva atmana tushta sthita pragyas tadochate. So then question arises, how will you attain such a state without being affected? So he says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. So he says, Vishaya, the sense objects. The senses have to be permanently retired. So there are two. One is voluntary retirement. Second is, one is sacked from the job. So nivartante means to leave. Vinivartante they means visheshena nivartante. That means forcibly taken out of employment. So never expect that the senses with sense objects will ever take voluntary retirement. The senses will never say, okay, I am retiring from enjoying with the objects. No. The senses have to be forcibly dragged away. That employment and engagement of the senses with the objects has to be forcibly withdrawn. That's the meaning of the word vinivartante. Like that. So again in 15th chapter comes vinivritta kama. To be free from lust, vinivritta. There has to be some force applied in this. Okay, so therefore there are 4 categories of pain. When there is no pain and no purpose, it is just like existence of a stone. Neither pain, not purpose. Then there may be low degree of pain, but high degree of purpose. It may be very pleasant, like a smooth travel or something. When there is a high degree of pain and low degree of purpose, then it is just like how the cruel demons deal with. It is unbearable, and high pain and high purpose means it is meaningful and bearable. So therefore, the difference between godly and ungodly is not violent or not violent, but violent for a dharmic purpose. So that's what Krishna wants Arjuna to be. And so the Gita's core message is not about violence or silence, but it is about transcendence. Because honor is not equivalent to pride, because honor is equivalent to honorable action and pride is equivalent to selfish action. And Krishna wants Arjuna to be freed from the selfish action. And so the 3rd chapter, Krishna reveals to Arjuna that now you have to choose between renunciation or action. Because Arjuna is confused. He wants to know, should I act or should I not act? So the constant dilemma between renunciation and action is there. And so Arjuna says, Jayasi chet karmanaste matah buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. What should I do? Should I act or should I not act? So, this is a very interesting concept. And that concept which comes here is that the eternal human perplexity is that action will get us into trouble, but inaction is no way out of the trouble, because sometimes the problems with inaction is inaction can be either impossible or hypocritical or unsustainable. Why is it impossible? Because you can't stop desiring. Why does it become hypocritical? Because you're showing outside some renunciation, but inside something else is going on. And unsustainable because without working, we cannot maintain even the society. So therefore, this is very beautiful concept. And so Krishna tells Arjuna there is a process of gradually becoming renounced by mentally renouncing first. And so he brings in the process of sacrifice. And he explains the cycle of sacrifice. Yagyartharth karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. So do not give up action, but give up proprietorship, ownership, enjoyership over that action. Because what is sacrifice? Sacrifice is to trade your present for the future, to give up that which is immediately enjoyable for that which will be eventually valuable. And that is what sacrifice means. And therefore, the 4 steps in this cosmic cycle is: step 1 is perform your duty. Step 2, do the duty in a mood of sacrifice. Step 3, sacrifice for satisfying the divine. And then life's necessities are provided. So prosperity is not a result of one's own selfish efforts, but prosperity is the result of the pleasure of the divine will. And this concept has to be understood. So therefore, sacrifice is actually a privilege coming from intelligent, not a burden coming from the world's nature. So, having described the Nishkam Karma Yoga, then Krishna says, it is ultimately the duty of even those who are perfect to continue performing that sacrifice. Why? To set the right example. Yadyadacharati sreshthas tattadevetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastat anuvartate. Higher the position, greater the contribution through service and sacrifice. And therefore, at the top of the hierarchy, do not dominate others but elevate others. Don't run away from sacrifice. Then Krishna says, the thing we have to overcome through this sacrifice is overcome our proprietorship, thinking that I am the doer. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. To think that I am the doer. Okay. So when does instruction become disruptive? When we force others into doing things as per our will. And so Krishna says, not everybody may be ready to take to the direct process. Prakrite guna sammudha sajjante guna karmasu. They may be still attached. Tan akritsna vido mantan kritsna vinna vichalayat. Gradually engage them. And therefore Thakur Bhaktivinoda explains, why do some devotees find practice of Krishna consciousness burdensome after a few years? Because there are 2 types of bhakti. One is swabhaviki and second is balotpadita. Swabhavaki is your own inspiration. Balotpadita is, it is being imposed upon you due to social reasons. Someone is taking, so I should also do. Otherwise, what will people say? I was in a yatra many years ago, and there was another devotee with me. And as I was about to sleep, I saw that this devotee is sitting on the bed with his beads in his hand, looking very angry. So I turned to him and said, today was a good day in yatra. Why you are looking so angry? He said, it is 10 o'clock at night, 10 rounds remaining. So I said, that is fine. No, I don't want it. So I said, why are you looking so angry? He said, I am thinking who brought me to Krishna consciousness first. That is balotpadita. You feel you have been forced into the process. You have not made your own choice. It is under social pressure or some other external pressure. So therefore, the three effects of performing duty, Krishna says, that when you perform the duty, proper performance of your duty regulates attachment, reduces attachment, and removes your attachment. And if you reject your duty, what will be the three effects? It will create disorder in the cosmos, it will disrupt the society, and it will degrade the individual. And therefore, dear Arjuna, perform your duty. Then Arjuna says, but sometimes I don't want to do certain activity, but it looks like some force is pulling me from inside. What is that? And Krishna says, Kama esha, Krodha esha, Rajoguna samudbhava. Desire that deviates from duty and leaves us degraded. And that's all based on the individual choices. And then Krishna explains in great detail that he has to overcome this lust. At the very beginning, tasmatvam indriyanyadau niyamya bhartarshava papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. It is the destroyer of jnana and vijnana. So now, because Krishna has said you have to fight, but you have to fight with detachment. So one of the key elements to do this is to have knowledge. So the fourth chapter describes transcendental knowledge, and in the first few verses it describes about lineage. It comes in parampara, and what is the divine nature of Krishna's appearance. And he explains that this knowledge was received in evam parampara praptam. And then Krishna tells Arjuna that actually you and me both appear to be same, but actually I have a transcendental body which never changes, and therefore I have been present since time immemorial. So the divine descent is to empower the victorious and to disempower the vicious and establish the rule of virtue. And so Krishna explains the famous verses, I come to establish dharma. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. And then he says, paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam. And he says, janma karma cha me divyam. My activities, my birth, they are all transcendental. Somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, how will I find you in the spiritual world? Prabhupada said, don't worry, I'll find you. You make your effort to reach there. Right? So therefore, Krishna then says, each one of us has opportunity to approach him, ye yathamam prapadyanti, and Krishna will reciprocate with us. And by that reciprocation, he will allow each one of us to be engaged in our duties as per our nature. Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam. All of us have a certain comfort, which is guna, and competence, which is karma. Based on our comfort and competence, a certain kind of profession or engagement we will be in. And therefore, Arjuna is supposed to be a kshatriya, but he has to now fight as a warrior, perform his duty with knowledge. And so naturally, if I fight, if I kill my own relatives, there will be sin. So how is it that I will be free from that sin? So then Krishna explains, Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayopyatra mohitaha. What is karma is very difficult to understand. Karmano hyapi bodhavyam cha vikarmana. Akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. Karma, akarma, vikarma, very difficult to understand. Krishna gives disclaimer right at the very beginning. Don't try to understand in too much detail, because only I understand how this is processed. You will be completely bewildered. Right? One time a very big police officer who was encounter specialist, who had killed many criminals and was transferred also many times. He called me for a Gita lecture at his house, and when I went there, he asked me, he thought I don't know about him. So he said, suppose, Prabhuji, there is a police officer who knows that if the criminal escapes, he is going to create havoc. So in interest of society, the police officer kills the criminal, but for protecting society. So now that killing by the police officer of the criminal, as per Gita, is it karma, akarma or vikarma? I had to be careful because I was dealing with encounter specialist. But what a philosophical question. So then I told him, the context of the Gita and how he can't just superimpose, the Gita and then philosophize his actions accordingly. So therefore, it is described here that when does engagement becomes entangling, the motivation behind that action actually entangles, not the action itself. If someone is fighting a neighbor with anger, he can get jailed. If someone is fighting in a war on behalf of the country against a certain forces on the other side, they get rewarded. So therefore it is the motivation. So unselfish action means when we are acting for a cause larger than ourselves. And then, the way to attain this knowledge, the transcendental knowledge, for it to rest within the heart, we need to be purified with sacrifice. So different types of sacrifices are described by Krishna in this series of verses. And then he says, Nayam lokosti ayagyasya kotonya kuru sattama. That actually you are the best of the Kuru dynasty, and therefore you should be performing this sacrifice. So, what is the source of knowledge? From where the knowledge comes? Krishna says, you get knowledge from Guru. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena. And when you take knowledge from Guru, what is the consequence of knowledge? The consequence of knowledge is yad gyatvana punarmoham evam yasyasi pandava. That you become free from illusion of how to work and free from all illusion. And what is the potency of this knowledge? This transcendental knowledge can purify even the most sinful. Api chetasi papebhya sarvebhya papakartma. Sarvam jnana plaveneva prajanam santarishasi. And therefore, what is the prerequisite for getting this knowledge? Shraddha or faith. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatpara sanyatendriya. Jnanam labdhva param shantim achirena digacchati. You need Shraddha. And what is the negative factor? Lack of Shraddha. Agyascha ashraddhadanascha samshayatma vinashyati. So if you do not have that faith, then you will lose all of that opportunity to get this knowledge. So therefore, what is reasonable faith? That which is sensible to intelligence and that which is verifiable by experience is reasonable faith. And so what every seeker needs to believe is the curiosity that there is something worth seeking. That's how spiritual life begins, right? We come to satsanga because we feel there is something worth seeking. But after coming, many times don't return again. Why? Because although their curiosity is satisfied that these Hare Krishnas have something worth seeking, the second thing stops them. What is the second thing? Capacity. Do I have the ability to follow? And they hear 4 regulative principles. They hear no chai, no coffee, and they say, hi, hi, not possible for me. And therefore, they come out of this cycle. And in due course of time, many practicing devotees also find it challenging to follow. So the way one can remain enlivened in this journey is how to maintain lifelong curiosity and how to go on building our capacity to practice this process for a lifetime. So Krishna concludes by telling Arjuna, Tasmat ajnana sambhutam hristam jnanasinatmanah chitvainam samshayam yogam atishthotishta bharata. My dear Arjuna, the ajnana within your heart, with the jnanasina, with the sword of knowledge, chitvainam, cut that knot. And then you stand up and you fight. And thus Krishna concludes the 4th chapter of transcendental knowledge. And now that he has described knowledge in detail and he has described Nishkam Karma Yoga in the previous 3rd chapter in detail, now he kind of brings this concept further in the next chapter, 5th chapter, where he will explain the action in Krishna consciousness of how Arjuna can actually see the 3 types of doers. The Jiva as a doer, Ishvara as the doer, Prakriti as the doer, and how the karma under the influence of Kala very much depends on the interplay between these 3. That we will discuss tomorrow at Shri Jagannath Temple. Jagannath Temple, no? Mandir ka na? Sheshadripuram ISKCON tomorrow morning, 8 to 10:30. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.